There it is. The old RoTaXL. Now this was the first drag sled that I actually ran on the grass. Gotta be 6 or 7 years ago, I'm thinking. Not the best idea to, start grass dragging with a modified type sled, but it was a lot of fun building it. And I quickly learned that running a stock class sled was a lot more competitive when you're just starting out. So this kind of fell to the wayside and has been sitting here for quite a few years. This is one of those projects that you keep thinking you're going to get to, and I'd occasionally buy parts. If I could pick up cheap racing parts at the swap meet or something, or I just found something I could use. There's parts scattered all over the place from this sled. As time goes along, you just keep moving things from here to there, saying I'll get to it one day. Well, seems like that day might be here actually, so now we got to go on a scavenger hunt to try and find all the pieces. So the first order of business is extraction. Just trying to get this thing out of here. Been digging up parts, clearing things out, finding stuff I forgot I had, so that's a plus. But we've almost got this thing uncovered to the point we can drag it out and then see how much work we got to do to it. Seeing daylight once again. This one's certified barn fresh. Change the spark plugs. Ought to be ready to race. So as usual, we're running short on time, resources, money. Pretty much par for the course. So basically when I stored this project, kind of forgot about it for a while. Well, I never really forgot about it. I just remembered how much work I had to do and then quickly moved on to something else. The suspension was the thing that needed a really major overhaul / change or replacement. On this particular setup, I actually had rollerblade wheels running on there. No big surprise that they didn't hold up, but they did work for a while. This is basically a 1979, I believe, TX suspension. Not the most well known for good weight transfer or parts availability, but can't believe these rollerblade wheels didn't hold up. I mean, I got the rollerblades from Goodwill. Maybe another suspension would be the smart way to go with this. But I guess we're going to continue on, try and dig yourself out of a hole and keep going with what we've got here. So, all of these terrible ideas that I came up with 6 or 7 years ago, we're going to soldier on. And that mainly are these cross shafts that kind of connect the two rails together there. It's a piece of pipe, something I got out of the hardware store. A little bit of conduit on there that I welded. And you can kind of see the wheels sort of fit on there, right? And there's a notch cut into that pipe, and that's what slides down the rail and holds all these on there. And that's about where I left off. I don't really have a good way to keep these things from moving up or down the rail, or falling out. So we got to figure out something for that. We were able to source some front idler wheels from the junk pile. Of course, they're a nice shade of faded pink, so perfect for this application. So we were really struggling with trying to find a way to attach these axles here and keep them from sliding up and down. There's a lot of options I thought of that were kind of hokey and either involved drilling into that rail in a spot that I really didn't want to weaken it, or it just was too complicated and too much work. In the end, I was able to find some small pieces of angle. Well, it was a long piece of angle. I chopped it up. And basically what we're going to do is, I drilled one hole out towards the end. We're going to slide these on the rail here, on the front and the back of the axle, and we can rivet these on here. So that'll keep this thing from moving up or down the rail, and it's a pretty quick way to do it. Granted, it's pretty hokey, but you know, that's the theme of this sled, so who cares? Getting these riveted on there now. Pretty hack, but hopefully it gets the job done. If you've got OCD, this is definitely not the track studding pattern for you. Got some valve springs for the bump stops on the front suspension arm. Really digging into the archives to get this engine out. Well, there's some lipstick on a pig. Almost new P85 clutch on a nicely dust preserved engine. Alright, that's a win for storage. Now this is a bonus. Digging through the parts pile, found this secondary. This thing's almost brand new. Completely forgot that I had it. But now that I think about it, I must have picked it up for 20 bucks one time. Good thing that I did. I'm looking forward to running these pipes. I've had these for quite a few years. Of all places, I ended up picking these up off eBay. I think it was $225. Back when I bought them, man, it was a big purchase. Well, still is, I guess. They're a set of Decker pipes, and they came off of a early 80s twin track Snow Pro 340. And that's how the seller was describing them. And I actually emailed one of the Deckers, and they confirmed that they are their pipes. So they ought to be a pretty stout set of pipes. Granted, they're for the 340, and I do have a 340 I may build eventually. Really modded out pretty heavily. For now, it's just going on my 440, which they're the same stroke. Similar pour timings, but we'll kind of have to see. Now the stinger diameters may need a little bit of tweaking, since they are for a 340, but these were made for an oval track sled, so hopefully for a short drag application, more restriction generally isn't a bad thing, unless you get too much heat in the engine, then you'll burn down a piston. But I guess we'll just kind of wing it and see what happens. Well, now that I got the chassis tore down here pretty much to bare bones, getting a look at things again, I really forgot how bad shape this chassis was. You see it took a pretty hard hit there around the left front ski, and it ends up the whole front framework must have got pushed back or cracked. They've got some angle iron, a U-bolt, kind of welded it back together, so that's certainly not mint anymore. The whole area around the jack shaft bearing there behind the secondary, this has a whole plate that's been added on. I guess that was all cracked up like they usually do. Trying to get things mocked up here. Pipes aren't exactly a fit, but nothing we can't change with a hole saw. Suspension is finally done. Well, I hope it's done. So that was a pretty big part of getting this thing built. Found the old skis. Things were going pretty good until I realized you gotta put them torsion springs on there before you put your axle in. Starting to look like something. Plumbing always plays a big part in my race builds. Alright, you don't know frustrating until you try and get these bolts up through the tunnel while there's a chiseled track, about a 1/4 inch away, we're going to live with 3 bolts on this motor plate for now. So we've been working fast, haven't had time to film much. We got the motor thrown in there finally. Clutches are hooked up. Got the carburetors going through. Still got to figure out the wiring. Seems like the old connector's gone, so I got to manually insert all these wires into this connector. And I don't remember exactly what's going on, but we'll have to figure that out. Radiator's just kind of sitting there. The hose alignment seems to work out pretty well, but now the hood don't close over the cap. So between that and where the pipes have to come out, I think we're just going to run without a hood for this time. Oil tank's just kind of hanging there on a piece of string. The Wall Brothers race seat's back on there. We might be in competition for the most zip ties. So we got a slight issue. It's like a 1-inch hose that connects to the thermostat housing on the engine, but we've got a 3/4 inch fitting over on the radiator. So we just jammed a piece of 3/4 inch line inside the 1-inch line, make our own bushing adapter. So daylight's quickly fading for a test run. Not sure if we're going to make it. Didn't have long enough springs, so I ended up using a couple of keychain rings to extend them out. So during the last shreds of daylight, I got the thing running out there and ready to take a pass. Warming it up on the stand, the radiator blows out. So much for getting any test and tune in. Or I couldn't remember what the heck that hole in the belly pan was for. Now I know. Easy drainage. There it is with a brand new used John Deere liquefier radiator. That came out of my 1980 that I put a Rotax 670 in. But I didn't need the radiator anymore. Got my overflow bottle set up and everything. That's about it. I gotta hit the bed because I'm gonna get like 3 hours of sleep, so we'll find out what happens tomorrow. So we ran the race, and it made it back on the trailer under its own power. Although barely. It was so rich that when I let off at the finish line, basically one cylinder fouled out or flooded out, and I had to kind of limp it back to the truck on one. Might not have seen that high-tech tachometer mount there. And also the dual kill switches. Since this has that old funky Bosch ignition system, it takes a 3-wire kill switch, which they're hard to come by and expensive if you buy them, used or aftermarket, because you got to keep them both isolated from each other. So instead of putting out the coin for one of those, we just wired up 2 switches, one for each cylinder, so you can shut them off individually. Same thing goes for the tethers. I had to wire 2 of them up and in tandem. Now you're supposed to run the copper core cables for these ignition systems because they're pretty weak to begin with. I couldn't find any straight up copper core lines, for a reasonable price. So I ended up getting these down at I think it was Tractor Supply. They had a whole tractor tune-up kit for like, I don't know, it was under 10 bucks I think. And you got 4 wires, all the other stuff I don't really need. But you got 4, solid copper spark plug cables. Made some tunnel extensions from an old Mosquito Blizzard tunnel. Lift handles off a garage door. Those footrests are off an old Yamaha GP 338, 1973 I believe. Got some coat hanger exhaust supports there. Got a hose clamp wired up to the side of the panel there. Tell you what, when I had this thing running at night, before I had this clamp down, well, couldn't believe the sparks that were flying. where this the muffler contacted this aluminum strip here. Not sure if it was from the the vibration pulses within the exhaust that was chipping away and creating sparks, or if it was some type of a static thing going on there, but it was shooting sparks about this far out to here, which is good because the gas tank's pretty far away. That's the oil injection tank off of a 1980 Arctic Cat Panther.